Ebusia, Captain Ibrahim Traore is trending. Donald Trump is trending. Colonel Mamadou Doumbouya is trending.
Apostle, we hear of this.
Burkina Faso is trending. America is trending.
He shock you.
Gambia is trending.
Don't run.
Ghana is sweet. Abi, say as we dey speak now, Captain Ibrahim Traore be the president of Burkina Faso. So as he can't date up now, no, a lot of changes has happened, and the countrymen in Burkina Faso are happy with the man, and he has formed some kind of alliance with Russia. So it make like he can set the standard for almost all the African countries, no. So Guinea president Kenneth Mamadou Doumbouya has also taken a giant step towards the mineral resources in their country, just like Ibrahim Traore has also taken some steps. So he has become like a yardstick for the other African presidents to follow. So currently, as we talk, Kenneth Mamadou Doumbouya has sent a shock wave in Guinea. So what actually transpired between Kenneth Mamadou Doumbouya and then the US? So guys, let's go straight and then let's go and listen to what actually transpired between Kenneth Mamadou Doumbouya and then the foreign companies that are working in Guinea. But don't forget, he's also following what the Ghanaian president. Don't forget that the Ghanaian president has also set up what we call the gold board, and this has really helped the country's economy, and therefore a lot of African leaders are imitating Captain Ibrahim Traore and also His Excellency John Dramani Mahama for the good policy that he is putting in the country, which is making the economy stable. Let's go straight and let's go and listen to what actually transpired between these two countries and the companies that are coming from this country.
Guinea's military leader, Colonel Mamadi Doumbouya, has sent shockwaves by revoking the mining licenses of 46 companies operating in the West African nation, signalling a resolute shift towards stricter oversight of foreign operators plundering the continent's wealth. This audacious act aligns Guinea with the revolutionary path charted by Burkina Faso's Captain Ibrahim Traore and mirrors similar moves by Mali and Niger as a wave of resource nationalism sweeps across the Sahel. These bold steps are not mere policy shifts. They are a clarion call to the world, particularly the West, that Africa is rising, reclaiming its birthright, and demanding respect as a sovereign force on the global stage. The era of exploitation is over, and the West is scrambling to reckon with a continent that is finally punishing its former colonial masters for centuries of looting. On Thursday, May 15, 2025, a government source in Conakry confirmed to Reuters that Guinea had cancelled the licenses of 46 mining companies involved in bauxite, gold, diamond and graphite operations. This decisive action, ordered by Colonel Doumbouya, who seized power in a 2021 coup, is a direct challenge to the foreign-dominated mining sector that has long extracted Guinea's vast mineral wealth with minimal benefit to its people. Guinea, home to the world's largest bauxite reserves, the primary ore for aluminum production, and significant deposits of gold and iron ore, has been a goldmine for Western corporations. Yet, the nation remains mired in poverty, with its people seeing little of the profits reaped by foreign firms. The revoked licenses, while targeting smaller, underperforming operations, are a warning shot to the industry's titans. These are just small, underperforming licenses, a mining analyst told Reuters, requesting anonymity due to the sensitivity of the issue. The impact on the market should be negligible, but this dismissive tone belies the deeper significance of Guinea's move. It is a calculated step toward dismantling the neo-colonial framework that has allowed Western companies to dominate Africa's resource sectors while leaving local populations impoverished. Colonel Doumbouya has made it clear that compliance with contractual commitments is non-negotiable, a stance echoed by Minister of Information and Communication Fana Souma on state broadcaster Radio Télévision Guinéenne. The message is unequivocal. Foreign companies must deliver tangible benefits to Guinea, or they will face the consequences. This move is not an isolated act, but part of a broader, continent-wide awakening. Guinea's actions resonate with the revolutionary policies of Captain Ibrahim Traore in Burkina Faso, as well as the bold steps taken by military-led governments in Mali and Niger. Together, these nations are rewriting the rules of engagement with the West, asserting control over their natural resources, and demanding accountability from foreign operators. The global implications are profound as Africa's resource-rich nations unite to challenge the exploitative systems that have enriched the West at their expense. To understand the significance of Guinea's actions, one must look to Burkina Faso, where Captain Ibrahim Traoré has emerged as the standard-bearer of Africa's resource sovereignty movement. Since seizing power in a September 2022 coup, the 37-year-old military leader has pursued a radical agenda to reclaim Burkina Faso's mineral wealth, particularly its gold reserves, from foreign hands. Traoré's policies are a direct assault on the neo-colonial structures that have kept Africa subservient to Western interests. His government has nationalised 2 gold mines previously owned by a London-listed firm, blocked the export of unrefined gold to Europe, and inaugurated a national gold refinery to process 150 tonnes annually. These measures ensure that Burkina Faso retains greater value from its resources, breaking the cycle of exploitation that has seen raw materials shipped abroad for processing, while African nations receive only crumbs. Traoré's rhetoric is as bold as his actions. At the 2023 Russia-Africa Summit, he declared that African leaders must stop behaving like puppets who dance every time the imperialists pull the strings. His anti-imperialist stance, rooted in the legacy of Burkina Faso's revolutionary hero Thomas Sankara, has galvanized a generation of Africans disillusioned with Western dominance. Traoré has expelled French troops, severed ties with Western-backed regional blocs like ECOWAS, and forged new partnerships with Russia, Turkey, and other non-Western powers. His vision for a sovereign Burkina Faso, free from the shackles of neocolonialism, has made him a continental icon, with supporters from Nairobi to Kingston chanting his name. Guinea's license revocations echo Traoré's playbook. Like Burkina Faso, Guinea is signalling that foreign companies can no longer operate with impunity. Colonel Doumbouya's insistence on contractual compliance mirrors Traoré's demand that mining firms deliver tangible benefits to the nation. Both leaders are driven by a shared conviction. Africa's resources must serve Africans first. This alignment is no coincidence. It reflects a growing consensus among military-led governments in the Sahel that the West's exploitative model must be dismantled. Guinea and Burkina Faso are not alone in this struggle. Mali and Niger, both under military rule since coups in 2020 and 2023, respectively, have taken similar steps to assert control over their mineral wealth. In Mali, Colonel Assimi Goïta's government has cracked down on foreign mining companies, revising the country's mining code to increase state ownership of gold and other resources. In August 2023, Mali's junta detained executives from Australian mining giant Barrick Gold, accusing them of failing to meet production targets and tax obligations. The government has also nationalised several mining operations and introduced stricter regulations to ensure that foreign companies contribute to local development. These measures have bolstered Mali's control over its gold industry, which accounts for a significant portion of its export revenue. Niger, under General Abdourahmane Chiani, has followed suit. The junta has revoked permits for foreign companies, including France's Orano, which operated a major uranium mine in the country. In July 2023, Niger suspended uranium exports to France, a move that sent shockwaves through Paris, which relies heavily on Nigerian uranium for its nuclear power plants. The government has also demanded greater state participation in mining ventures and imposed higher taxes on foreign operators. These actions reflect Niger's determination to break free from France's economic stranglehold and redirect its resources toward national development. Together, Burkina Faso, Mali and Niger have formed the Alliance of Sahel States, AES, a regional bloc that prioritizes economic and security cooperation among military-led governments. The AES, established in September 2023, is a direct rebuke to ECOWAS, which these nations view as a Western-backed institution that perpetuates neo-colonial influence. By withdrawing from ECOWAS and imposing tariffs on goods from the region, the AES countries are asserting their economic independence and building a framework for self-reliance. Guinea's recent actions suggest it may be aligning with this bloc, further strengthening the Sahel's united front against foreign exploitation. The West is reeling from these developments, and for good reason. For centuries, Europe and North America have grown fat on Africa's resources, extracting minerals, oil, and other commodities while leaving African nations impoverished and dependent. France, in particular, has maintained a vice-like grip on its former colonies through mechanisms like the CFA franc, which ties the economies of 14 African nations to the euro and gives Paris veto power over their monetary policies. This system ensures that African countries remain economically subservient, exporting raw materials cheaply to Europe while importing finished goods at exorbitant prices. The actions of Guinea, Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger threaten to upend this order. The revocation of mining licenses, nationalization of key industries, and expulsion of French troops signal a rejection of the West's economic and military dominance. Western governments and corporations are now scrambling to contain the fallout. France, which has seen its military presence evicted from Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, Chad, Senegal, and Ivory Coast, is particularly alarmed. President Emmanuel Macron's dismissive remarks accusing African leaders of ingratitude for failing to thank France for its help in combating insurgencies have only fueled anti-Western sentiment, as Captain Traoré retorted, "If anyone is ungrateful, it is Macron. France exists today thanks to our ancestors. They should pray for us." The United States, too, is rattled. General Michael Langley, head of US Africa Command AFRICOM, sparked outrage in April 2025 when he accused Traoré of misusing Burkina Faso's gold reserves to protect his regime rather than benefit the nation. The backlash was swift, with protests erupting across Africa and the diaspora, condemning the US for interfering in African affairs. Langley's remarks, made during a US Senate hearing, were seen as an attempt to smear Traoré and undermine the growing wave of resource nationalism. The Economic Freedom Fighters, EFF, in South Africa rejected the allegations, calling them a desperate attempt by the West to maintain control over Africa's resources. Western media outlets have also joined the fray, labeling Traoré and other military leaders as dictators and their governments as juntas. Yet, these characterizations ring hollow to millions of Africans who see these leaders as liberators fighting against centuries of exploitation. The West's narrative is losing traction, as social media platforms like TikTok and X amplify pro-Traoré sentiments and expose the hypocrisy of Western powers. AI-generated videos and posts glorifying Traoré as Africa's messiah and the people's captain have gone viral, resonating with a generation that is fed up with poverty and foreign domination in a resource-rich continent. The moves by Guinea, Burkina Faso, Mali and Niger are not just regional, they are reshaping the global order. By asserting control over their resources, these nations are forcing the West to confront a new reality. Africa will no longer be a passive supplier of raw materials. The revocation of mining licenses and the nationalization of key industries signal that African countries are prioritizing their own development over the profits of foreign corporations. This shift is a direct challenge to the global economic system, which has long relied on Africa's resources to fuel Western prosperity. The implications for the West are dire. Guinea's bauxite is critical to the global aluminum supply chain, and any disruption could send prices soaring. Similarly, Burkina Faso's gold, Mali's gold, and Niger's uranium are vital to industries ranging from jewelry to nuclear energy. By tightening control over these resources, African nations are gaining leverage in global markets and forcing Western companies to negotiate on their terms. This newfound power is already evident in the arbitration proceedings launched by Australia's Sarama Resources against Burkina Faso and the growing pressure on major operators in Guinea to comply with stricter regulations. More broadly, these actions are fostering a new respect for Africa on the global stage. For too long, the continent has been dismissed as a basket case plagued by poverty and conflict. But the rise of leaders like Traoré and Doumbouya, backed by the unwavering support of their people, is changing that narrative. Rallies in support of Traoré have spread beyond Burkina Faso to cities like Accra, London and Montego Bay, Jamaica, reflecting a global groundswell of solidarity. African Americans and Black Britons, inspired by Traoré's anti-imperialist rhetoric, see him as a symbol of resistance against the legacies of colonialism and slavery. As one protester in Ouagadougou declared, because Colin Powell lied, Iraq was destroyed. Barack Obama lied, Gaddafi was killed. But this time, their lies won't affect us. The West is being forced to reckon with an Africa that is no longer content to play the role of the world's resource depot. The expulsion of French troops, the rejection of Western-backed institutions like ECOWAS, and the pivot toward partnerships with Russia, Turkey, and other non-Western powers signal a geopolitical realignment. The alliance of Sahel states, with its focus on regional sovereignty and economic cooperation, is a blueprint for a new African unity that prioritizes African interests over those of foreign powers. Guinea's alignment with this movement suggests that more nations may follow, creating a domino effect that could transform the continent. While the actions of Guinea, Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger are cause for celebration, they are not without challenges. The Sahel remains plagued by jihadist insurgencies, with Burkina Faso alone losing 40% of its territory to militant groups. Traoré's government has struggled to curb the violence, with deaths from militant attacks nearly doubling from the 5,621 in 2022 to 6,389 in 2024. Guinea, Mali, and Niger face similar security threats, which could undermine their efforts to assert resource sovereignty. Moreover, the nationalization of industries carries risks of inefficiency and corruption, as seen in other African state-owned enterprises. For these policies to succeed, leaders like Doumbouya and Traoré must prioritize strong institutions, transparency, and inclusive governance. Yet, the opportunities are immense. By retaining greater control over their resources, these nations can invest in education, healthcare, and infrastructure, addressing the systemic poverty that has fueled unrest. The construction of gold refineries in Burkina Faso and Mali, for example, could create thousands of jobs and boost local economies. Guinea's vast bauxite reserves, if processed domestically, could position the country as a major player in the global aluminum market. The alliance of Sahel states, if expanded to include Guinea and other nations, could foster regional integration and economic self-reliance, reducing dependence on Western aid and markets. The revocation of 46 mining licenses in Guinea is more than a policy decision. It is a declaration of independence. Colonel Mamadi Doumbouya, following in the footsteps of Captain Ibrahim Traoré, has thrown down the gauntlet to the West, demanding that Africa's resources serve its people. Mali and Niger have joined this fight, proving that the Sahel is the epicenter of a new African revolution. The West, long accustomed to dictating terms, is now on the defensive, grappling with the reality of a continent that is punishing its exploiters and asserting its sovereignty. This is Africa's moment. From Conakry to Ouagadougou, Bamako to Niamey, a new generation of leaders is rising, inspired by the legacy of Sankara, Lumumba, and Garvey. They are not perfect, but they are fearless, driven by a vision of an Africa that is free, dignified, and sovereign. The world is watching, and the West is trembling. Let us rally behind these leaders, not as blind followers, but as critical allies in the struggle for a new Africa. Let us demand accountability, push for inclusive governance, and ensure that this revolution delivers for the people. The time for apologies, gratitude, and subservience is over. Africa is awake, and the world will respect us not out of charity, but out of necessity. As the sun rises over the Sahel, a new vision for Africa emerges, one where unity transforms the continent into a global superpower, commanding respect from every corner of the world. The bold actions of leaders like Guinea's Colonel Mamadi Doumbouya, Burkina Faso's Captain Ibrahim Traoré, Mali's Colonel Assimi Goïta, and Niger's General Abdourahmane Chiani signal a seismic shift. By asserting control over their nation's vast mineral wealth, these leaders are laying the foundation for a united Africa that no longer begs but stands tall, forcing the West to come knocking. If African leaders can unite, harness the continent's resources, and reject the posture of dependency, Africa will not only earn global respect, but become a beacon of power, prosperity, and pride, drawing the world to its shores. Imagine an Africa where leaders from Cairo to Cape Town, Lagos to Addis Ababa set aside differences and forge a singular vision. The continent holds 30% of the world's mineral reserves: bauxite in Guinea, gold in Burkina Faso and Mali, uranium in Niger, cobalt in the Congo, and rare earths across the region. These resources power global industries, from aluminum production to nuclear energy and electric vehicles. If African nations unite under a shared economic framework, they could dictate terms to the world. No longer would Africa export raw materials only to import finished goods at exorbitant prices. Instead, a united Africa could build refineries, manufacturing hubs, and tech industries on its soil, creating millions of jobs and keeping wealth where it belongs, with its people. This unity would end the era of begging. For too long, African governments have sought aid from Western capitals, hat in hand, while their resources are plundered. But when leaders stand proud, leveraging their minerals as strategic assets, the dynamic reverses. The West, dependent on Africa's bauxite, gold and cobalt, would be forced to negotiate on Africa's terms. Picture European and American CEOs lining up in Conakry, Ouagadougou and Bamako, pleading for access to resources they once took for granted. A united Africa, speaking with one voice, could impose fair trade agreements, demand technology transfers, and secure investments that uplift communities rather than enrich foreign boardrooms. The West would beg not because of goodwill, but because Africa's minerals are the lifeblood of their economies. A united Africa would not just wield economic power, it would redefine global influence. With a population projected to reach 2.5 billion by 2050, a unified African Union could rival the economic might of China or the United States. Imagine a continental free trade area, fully realized, where goods, services and ideas flow freely from Dakar to Djibouti. The African Continental Free Trade Area, AFCFTA, already in motion, could become the world's largest market, driving intra-African trade and reducing reliance on Western imports. With strategic investments in infrastructure, high-speed rails connecting Nairobi to Accra, ports bustling in Lagos and Durban, Africa could become the hub of global commerce. This economic powerhouse would command respect, not as a charity case, but as an equal partner in global affairs. The world would flock to Africa, not as tourists gawking at safaris, but as partners seeking opportunity. A united Africa, with its vibrant cultures, cutting-edge industries, and youthful energy, would be a magnet for innovation and investment. Cities like Kigali, already a tech hub, could rival Singapore. Lagos, with its creative pulse, could outshine Los Angeles. Young Africans, empowered by education and opportunity, would lead in AI, renewable energy, and space exploration. The diaspora, millions strong in the Americas, Europe, and beyond, would return, bringing expertise and capital to a continent that welcomes them home. Global youth would look to Africa, not Silicon Valley, for inspiration, drawn by a narrative of self-reliance and pride. This vision requires courage. African leaders must transcend ethnic, linguistic, and historical divides, forging a shared identity rooted in the dreams of Nkrumah, Nyerere, and Sankara. They must reject the crumbs of foreign aid and the strings of Western loans, trusting in the wealth beneath their feet. Corruption, a cancer that erodes trust, must be uprooted through transparent governance. Security challenges from insurgencies to piracy must be met with a unified African defense force, ensuring stability for progress. The alliance of Sahel states is a promising start, but it must expand to include East, Southern and Central Africa, creating a continental bloc that speaks with one voice. The world is watching. A united Africa, standing firm on its mineral wealth, would force global powers to recalibrate. No longer would they dictate terms through IMF conditions or military bases. Instead, they would seek partnerships, recognizing